Welcome, Anthony. Thank you so much for joining us for this webinar and giving us all your insights.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
It is such a pleasure. Okay, so I was wondering, maybe you could just talk us through your observations of how well students prepare for exams and whether you've noticed a difference in preparation in this new era of online exams.
Right. Well, I've definitely noticed some very big differences actually. And the most exciting, and I might talk about this a bit later, but the most exciting is that I've never been able to give out so many A's and A pluses as I have over the last 2 years, which is very exciting.
Yeah.
Exciting for me, exciting for my colleagues, exciting for music education in Australia, I think, because positive results and high caliber results mean a great future for music education. So as to why that may have happened, I think there's probably a few reasons. Maybe we practiced a bit more during lockdown. Maybe our teachers got very inventive and very innovative through the lockdown and through the distance education. And our students probably practiced a bit more during the lockdowns and didn't have to travel as much. So something definitely changed. And I guess the recording gives an opportunity. Some teachers might like to do like just pretend it's a normal exam, so the kids all line up and they come in and one take and that's it. And other teachers might be thinking, hey, well, this is an opportunity to really shape and really to develop the students' abilities. So we can do multiple recordings, which has some positives and negatives. But one of the real big positives that multiple recordings would have is that our students, maybe for the first time, are really listening to themselves playing. And from a piano point of view, unlike other instruments, it can be a bit like it can become like button pressing. You press the key and the sound comes out. Whereas like for other instrument, particularly if it's a string instrument, it's very hard to make a beautiful sound and to get it in tune. So maybe people at those sorts of instruments have to listen a bit more. So I think students have been given an opportunity to listen to themselves, and then they can decide, is what I'm hearing, is that what I intended? Is it the result that is that what I thought I was going to do? Are the dynamics what I thought they were, or just what I thought? Or I thought I did the dynamics, but they're not really there when it turns out. So multiple recordings is a really great way of rehearsing for a final performance.
That is so interesting, and it's a concept I hadn't really thought of, and that is that, yes, what the online era has done is forced students to self-assess because they don't want to send in a video they're not happy with, whereas they've never had that opportunity before. If they go in and do a live exam, there are no retakes, and perhaps even in leading up to preparation for a live exam, maybe they did do a couple of concerts in preparation, but they probably didn't get an opportunity to listen back to themselves. So you're saying that they're listening and they're learning and they're self-assessing, and therefore the overall standard has gone up over the last 2 years?
I think so. I mean, I think that with the opportunity to decide, is this, which is my best recording, what's my best take, that is different to a live performance. But anyone who's tried to record themselves and make a perfect recording will know it's really hard to do it for one piece, let alone for 5 pieces. So it's not as if it's easy to do a perfect take, an A+ or better version of all your pieces, even if you are recording. But I think it does help to lift the standard and to actually just to sit objectively and listen in a way that you can't really objectively listen always when you've got so many other things to consider in the moment of playing.
That's so true. In previous conversations, you've mentioned that when examiners are listening, that they have to listen objectively as well, and that like the AMEB recommends that that examiners judge according to syllabus objectives. So do you, in your opinion, are teachers preparing their students well and are you able to examine according to these syllabus objectives?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the objectives are there, and I'd recommend if anyone wants to know what an examiner is looking for, it's just that they're the things that we are only allowed to comment on. It can't be anything else. It has to be part of those objectives. And so I have seen, just on the most simple objective, the accuracy of notes and rhythms definitely has increased. The ability to keep in time has seemed to increase as well. And I think that, again, when I was saying about not always being possible to be objectively listen when you're playing, we're not always sure when we're playing, when we speed up and slow down, because time has a funny way of bending when we're in flow, as teachers will know. But when we sit outside and say, oh, and ask the student and say, oh, I was racing there, I didn't realize that, or I, X, Y, and Z. So I think that there has been an ability for teachers to assess against themselves and their students against the syllabus criteria.
Yeah, that's really good. And so these syllabus objectives can be found, they're freely available. It's not a secret.
It's not a secret, no.
Right.
No, and also the grade descriptors aren't a secret as well. Actually, they used to be more prominent on the when we used to get paper copies of the exams. They used to say what an A plus and a B and a C was. But it'll be, for a B plus, it's meritorious achievement against the syllabus objectives. For A, it's outstanding achievement, and C is there's some unevenness against the or significant unevenness against the objectives.
Right. And I imagine it's traumatic for you if you have to give out a C or a C plus. How do you feel about those instances?
Yeah, I mean, I think more traumatic is if there's a complete lack of success in the exam, and that could mean many things. It could mean that the student doesn't have very good advice from their teacher, or it could mean that there's some very unrealistic things happening, like maybe the student skipped multiple grades in a very short period of time because there's that competitive thing that goes on in social media amongst parents and teachers, and about how young students can be passing certain grades, not really knowing what the backstory is. If there are some very young children who do high grades, but maybe there's some interesting circumstances that goes around that. So yeah, I never want any student to do poorly, and you want to give out the highest mark possible, while still being objective, because it wouldn't be fair for anybody that works hard, any teacher or any student that works hard. If there would have to be a new grading, wouldn't it? If everybody gets an A, then what do we do with the students who do better than those students? I mean, it's, unfortunately.
Absolutely. So it's all very well to have compassion and leniency as an examiner, but then where are the marks for what happens to the people who've really prepared well? There has to be some difference in the marking that's given.
Yeah. I think that also can't really be. No one's really able to know what the situation is of why a student has come, for instance, and they seem to be unprepared. It could be that they're just having a bad day, but any teacher and student, any good teacher should tell their student, I already know what, regardless of what happens in the room, we already know how you've done this year. So a student that gets an A in my studio who's done no work all year doesn't really get, I'm not really pleased with that. It's like, well, okay, good for you, but maybe you could have done better then. But or particularly the student that gets a bad result on the day, then my job as the teacher is to say, hey, this happens in performance all the time. Let's, or in life all the time. And the most important thing to do, and the greatest, in my opinion, the greatest success comes from people that are determined, and when they fail, that they pick themselves up and start again. If you go to America, you'll find that exact attitude. If you failed in business, people are likely to hire you because you have some experience.
That is so true. They say that entrepreneurs frequently talk about their third or fourth bankruptcies. They're very used to failing. In terms of preparing your own students, how do you go about preparing your own students for exams, and has that process changed since you became an examiner?
Yes, might have to repeat the question again. I remember the last bit. How has it changed as I've been an
Okay,
examiner?
I'll ask
Well,
it again, and we'll edit this. Okay, so how do you go about preparing your students for exams, and has that process changed or become more nuanced at all since you became an examiner?
so I can answer the second part of your question first, and that is, as an examiner, I have got to see that the standard is much wider than I thought it was, much higher at the high end, and much lower at the lower end. It was much. I was quite surprised by the sheer different levels and capabilities of students and teaching out there. So I guess sometimes I thought, well, actually, I've just heard the most wonderful performance of X piece, and that's helped me with extra ideas for my own teaching. So in a way, like we are as teachers, as an examiner, I'm a learner as well. I'm learning all the time, and I can hear the same piece played hundreds of times in a year, and I really have a good idea of all the different possibilities, expressive possibilities. How do I train my own students? Well, if I'm preparing them for an exam, that's a particular kind of thing. So it becomes quite focused on a smaller number of pieces. Of course, there's the other things that must go on. But this is a performance exam, so you have to prepare the students and make sure they've got the technical skills and the mental skills and the mental stamina, that you develop the mental stamina for them, so that maybe they can get through one short piece, but then they've got to be able to play two pieces and then three and then all their pieces for the exam. So that takes quite a bit of preparation, quite a bit of planning actually. So we have multiple concerts a year. I already was using recording devices in my own preparation for my examinations, like my diplomas. And I found it very helpful for my own students. I'd get them to record the piece before they come to lesson, because maybe that means that something happens during the week. But also because it would help them to hear. So if they didn't record it before they came to lesson, then we would record it in the lesson, so I could help them to actually hear what they played. Because as I said before, it can be more challenging to objectively assess what's going on when you're playing.
Yes, absolutely. So now, before you mentioned social media being a platform for raising the competitive levels of parents, and they want their children to achieve as high a grade as low an age as possible. What about social media and teachers? Like, as a member of a few Facebook groups, I often see posts from teachers who are venting about their bad exam experiences, both either as a teacher or as for their students. So as an examiner, when you see these posts, how do you react?
I might just say that as a human, I try not to really involve myself much in social media, because I don't know if it brings out the best in humans and society. But that being said, I'm aware of there's definitely a positive aspect to the pedagogy things that the pedagogy groups. There's collegiality. There's sharing of skills and information. I don't know if it's going on, but maybe teachers are sharing videos of their prize students playing and getting feedback from other teachers, or maybe just pats on the back or well done you. Yeah, I guess negative stories get placed very highly in the algorithms, and also as humans, we're biologically being designed so that we focus on negative things. It's important for us to know if there's something dangerous and to focus on that, like something horrible, like a lion coming to eat us, rather than a cute puppy dog. So I think even if these things do get magnified as they do on social media, it might be worth just remembering that that's why they're getting magnified. And it'd be interesting to know, maybe you can tell me, Sam, like how much do we really know about the student? Do they share the videos? Do they share the reports, or is it just anecdotal evidence? I don't know.
You're right. We never get the details, we never see reports. There's no way of sharing recordings or evidence of an exam. I don't think anybody would actually do that. The vents that we often see are people who feel that the examiner has not had enough compassion. But then I take your point before, if there's only so much that you can do, because if you're compassionate and lenient with everybody, then it's kind of a little unfair to those students who have prepared beautifully, or and not, maybe not even just prepared their content beautifully, but actually prepared enough so that the performance is successful on the day, and they're not completely debilitated by nerves. That's all part of the preparation.
Yeah, I'd say two things. I mean, the video exams are different because, of course, there's no examiner interaction, which is a shame because I think that's a really important aspect, of, having a nice experience with an examiner and the examiner smiles and all that sort of stuff. But I think it comes back again, sometimes if the examiner, what would the student think if the examiner sort of goes, just takes like a deep breath or something, and the sort of self-talk that can happen could be, oh, the examiner thinks that was terrible. But actually, the examiner might be thinking, gee, I've got to go home and cook dinner after this or something. It could be like, although maybe they just forgot to breathe a little bit and then, took a deep breath. So we're not very good at knowing what the other person's thinking. So that might be worth remembering what, in terms of the interactions when it does go back to in-person, that the examiners aren't really, mean monsters. Maybe they used to be, but they're not, as far as I can tell, these days. And in terms of compassion, I guess I felt like students that sat HSC or NAPLAN and all those things actually needed compassion and leniency over the last couple of years. They had no choice but to do those examinations. But music exams, like, you can enter at any time and put your video in. So no one is forcing anyone to do these exams. And really, you should be ready if you submit. Now, of course, there is that deadline at the end of the year when you'd have to wait until the next year. So maybe there is a sort of deadline, but yeah, I think that more leniency should be given to those students in the HSC recently, and I hope that there was actually. I'm sure there was. I know some of the HSC markers were saying we're bending over backwards trying to find marks for as many marks as we could for every student.
That's so lovely. And for non-New South Wales people, HSC means final year of school. Year 12, just that final year of high school when you've got to do those mandatory exams. And so that's really nice to hear. Yeah, they have really had it tough, the students coming through this period.
And just on the leniency, I would say that unfortunately, some people want a leniency because the student has announced themselves very well, or because they have, just been able to get up and do the exam. And we as teachers, and I'm a teacher, of course, we have to be positive to our students, but we should be realistic as well. If the student's not really ready, probably should tell them before that, if you play something at a very slow speed or with incorrect notes, that the examiner's not really in a position to be lenient, because they can only judge based on the syllabus objectives. So if the student is a nervous student, they don't need to announce themselves. They don't need to memorize. They don't need to memorize what their pieces are. They should have a piece of paper and they can read off it. But if speech and drama exam, of course, that would be different, wouldn't it? It is about, the way that you present and your diction and the way you carry yourself.
Absolutely. Okay, so I just have one final question for you, and that is to do with parental pressure and exams. Obviously, as a very senior examiner with the AMEB, I imagine majority of your parents defer to your judgment. If you say a student's not ready, then they're not ready. Now, have you ever come up against parents who don't defer to your judgment, who really pressure you, want their child to do an exam, perhaps a grade they're not ready for, or at a time they're not ready for, and how do you deal with that pressure?
I love that you think that my experience would have any bearing on parental pressure, because of course the parents pressure me a lot. I would say that I'm pretty. Anyone that knows me would know that I'm pretty stubborn, or set in my ways. So I'm pretty determined to say, well, no, the student's not ready, or I use it as an opportunity to say, absolutely, but this is what has to happen. Your child hasn't done any practice all year, so now you have to practice really, really, really hard. Or your child has practice, but there's still more to go. And I just try to put the onus back onto the student or onto the parent, and then ultimately onto the student. Now, of course, it's unfair for many young children, the kind of parental pressures they have. They're just out of control. But I do try and put it back to the parent. Now, if the parent really forces me into a position, and I feel extremely uncomfortable, I could tell the parent that they can enroll the student themselves, that because I'm not prepared to enroll the student. I think I could say that, and one of the reasons is not that I'm worried about getting a C or any mark on my I know teachers think that their students' results are like a record. It's not. It's not used. It's not held against you at all. So I have all the results, on all the different results on my teaching record, but no fails. But if I just say to this parent, it could be a really bad choice for your child. It could be a very bad experience. It's not a good experience for a child to fail. And if you're setting your child up to fail, or to just do something in a kind of, excuse the French, half-assed manner, then it's still there's going to be a problem down the road. The next grade's going to be difficult. The next grade after that's going to be difficult. So I do try and hold the line, and communicate with the parents well in advance and ongoing as well. Your child's not practicing, I don't think they're going to be ready for enrollment date, So it doesn't get to enrollment date and they say, my child has to enroll now.
Yes, so you have to be strong to come up against this pressure and hold your ground, and it's really the child, the student that you're considering first and foremost.
But definitely managing the relation and communicating all the way along, so there's no surprises. But yeah, I would say that the pressure is not limited, and it becomes relentless sometimes. So you relent, and you have a child do a grade, and you really you do extra lessons, and they practice and they do a lot, and they get that A for 6th grade, and the parent turns around and goes, great, now they're doing 8th grade. And it's like, and then you pull your hair up, because meanwhile they haven't been reading enough music, they haven't been doing theory, they haven't been doing technical work. All they've been doing is just cramming 3 or 4 pieces into their poor bodies, and it's not nourishing for anybody. So it in the end it can become quite terminal, I think. So
yes.
Good luck, teachers.
Pardon?
I'd say good luck to all teachers. I mean, we've got to be, it's hard work, and it's nice that we all have each other's back, as a teaching community.
Yes, we absolutely do. Well, thank you so much for all of that. Do you want to let's end on a positive note. What would be your best teaching tip for preparing for a performance, whether it's like if you had to summarize and you're just about to shoo a student out the door, and don't forget, performance is all about something like that?
Yeah, I can tell you exactly what it is. It's my mantra as well. It's and I use it to avoid performance anxiety. And I tell myself to sing, and I tell my students to sing, so that when you get nervous or you're not sure what to do when you're playing the instrument, unless it's like Prokofiev or something very percussive. But the job of a pianist is to make our instrument sing. So if I want to focus, I think of the singing line. I ask myself, can I make the line more beautiful? And how would a singer sing this line? And sing, sing, sing.
That's beautiful. I love that. We all have to sing more. Thank you,
Absolutely.
Anthony. This has been fantastic.
You're so very welcome, and I wish you all the very best with preparation for video exams.
Thank you.